Hey, y'all. What's up? What's up? You are hanging out with me in the house today. Listen, friends, I am so excited for this week. This week is just awesome. I had the opportunity to speak at a case conference in New York City where I live. Y'all, I never get the opportunity to speak at a conference at home. Not never. Rarely. And so it was such a treat to be able to really hang out and to just share the message that I really love, which is in order to be a leader that leads well, you have got to live well. And so that is what has happened this week. And y'all, in the world of being a mama this week, I want you to know that the queenager now has 2 jobs. And so I was teasing her. Y'all know I'm Jamaican. And you know what people tease us Jamaicans and say, we got 3 jobs, but she has 2. And guess what, y'all? Because prom season is on us. And I already bought baby girl's dress, okay? And she spent her money on her little embellishments. She's going to be fabulous. But now they want all the stuff. They want the step and repeats and this and that. Who has time for that? And so she has got herself a little extra job so she can pay for the things she likes. Okay. Shout out to responsibility. To all my parents who are watching and my aunties and uncles, get it together. We also are closer to decision day. Oh my gosh. May 1 is college decision day. And I will be sharing with y'all on May 1 where the queenager is going to college. I know y'all all want to chip in and give congratulations. And you know, she gonna put her Cash App on her thing. You know how these teenagers are. So I'm just really excited. But that's not why we're here. I'm just giving you the business for today. We are going to be chatting, and by we, I mean me, with my good friend Tammy. And let me tell you, this human is amazing. One of the things that I wanted to talk to her about was what her journey was around the CFRE and the challenges and the barriers that she's had to experience to achieve it and to leverage it. And Tammy has over 15 years of experience in the charitable and social sector, which I love that. And like me, social justice, youth, education, that's where she lives. That's why she and I are so simpatico. And right now she is the Senior Director of Development at Visions of Science, which is an organization dedicated to advancing STEM equity with a focus on Black and racialized youth from low-income communities in the greater Toronto area. I have to tell y'all, I know some of the baddest and the best fundraising professionals and social sector professionals in Canada, period. Like I've had the privilege of being able to speak and to work with clients. And so I'm so excited to be able to bring Tammy's perspective to our lives, because a lot of times we do work and it has a very US centric approach, but I like to think of the work that we do globally. And so I'm going to bring Tammy on up so that we can chat. Hey, friend.
Hey, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Like just officially connect in this capacity. It's very nice.
Oh my gosh. It's so crazy that like for lots of folks, we become like friends in the internet. And then you're like, yes, when do I get to see you in real life? But we actually connected in 2018. You saw me speak at a conference. And so
yes. When we talk about the hustle, I'll get into that in a little bit. But that was part of the hustle. I became a diversity fellow for AFP Icon in 2018 in NOLA. And I saw you speak at a session, I think it was on diversity in the workplace.
Yes.
And it was the first time I had been in a space with so many fundraisers. First of all, there are a lot of us. And then the other piece of that was all of the fundraisers of color congregated in that one room. Right. And, you know, that was a really powerful moment for me because I saw myself represented in the people that were there. And there was a lot of sharing that happened, I think, in that space.
Yes, absolutely.
I think I resonated with a lot of what you were saying, just about the barriers that we can experience in the workplace and, you know, and the things that we do. And it was just very, it was a powerful moment for me. It was a pivotal moment, I would say, like to have that experience. So
I love that.
Cultivating those spaces.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's the thing that I didn't even realize that I needed until I realized I needed it. And I had to look around and I was like, oh, people are hanging around after I speak. Oh, people are asking me. I said, wait a minute, what is going on here? We have got to stop. And so I am committed to making sure that Black and brown folk globally, particularly folks who identify as women and queer folk, are set up for success. And success for me is not just what happens at work, it's what happens also at home, right? So we got to take care of our number one home, which is the body. And then we have to think about what are the missions that we want to place ourselves. So, how did you get into fundraising work? I'm always curious about how folks, right? So I slipped and fell on the kitchen floor and ended up a fundraiser.
I feel like that's a very common story. So that's definitely my story. I was working in HR at the time, and I had someone doing fundraising at the organization who I still keep in touch with. Actually, that's how I found my way to Visions of Science as well. Who was like, hey, can you like do some, make some donor calls on the side and do that? So it's like a side, like the side of your desk is what they always do. So I was holding many hats, but that was one of them. And I enjoyed my conversations with donors on the phone, figuring out like why they were passionate to give to the organization. I was like, so what is this? Do people like actually like do this as a job? Like what's, what is this?
And I'm like, yes.
And then got into third-party fundraising after that, and volunteer management, but didn't really fully get into fundraising role until I stepped into a management position. And it wasn't just fundraising, though. It was also programs. I was managing programs. I was managing fundraising. So basically, I was raising the money and then pushing them out to the programs that actually needed the money. So it was a very interesting organization, small one of only 3 people. So when you say wearing many hats, I did Girl, I was scrappy. That's what I would do by myself.
And so it's so funny, like, because I've worked at really small shops and also at national organizations and, really like federated organizations and disparate organizations. And I have to tell you, the roll up your sleeves, you better learn everything and get it done that I learned in my small shop experience. People used to poo-poo on it like, oh, you've only raised $2 million. I'm like, do you know how hard it is to get a $25 donor to start giving you $1,000? Like, do you understand the percentage of math?
Yeah. You know what a win it is when a donor walks in with a $25. I had a donor walk in, rip up a $2,500 check and give me I was like $5,000. I was like, that is so amazing. Like, am I right? Like, these are the kinds of wins that you celebrate because it's true. But I think, that was the biggest curve of my fundraising learning journey was just trial and error. And when you're in a small shop, you don't have a lot of professional development dollars going around. So that was where I really had to like leverage, like, bless all the people that put free online content. Like when it comes to fundraising, like those resources are so valuable for people who are in small shops because they just don't have access to like, attending sessions where you pay money for it. Like full stop. Even going to Congress, even going to fundraising day, if you can't secure a scholarship, you don't have time to even apply for the scholarship because you're so that's right. Your day-to-day is so intense. Like that's just, those online, all that online content, people offering their lunch and learns and things that you can just join on, like those are the things that really like helped me grow as a fundraiser. And then implementing some of those ideas as well, like with the trial and error, that was the biggest learning curve for me and didn't really step into like a full fundraising, no other competing priorities except for communications, of course, after that. And now I would say this is my first like actual like only fundraising role, which is very liberating and
you can focus in a different kind of way.
That's right. Exactly.
So what was the point that you decided to go on ahead and get your CFRE? What was was it a day? Did something happen? Did you just kind of wake up? Did somebody nudge you? Because I got nudged. Okay.
Yeah, right. I would say it's a combination of all the above. So I had it as a bucket list item because I really felt that being a small shop girl, they say small town girl. I was a small shop girl for a long time. It was out of reach for me. So I was like, I'm not going to raise enough money. I'm not going to have enough professional development. I'll keep it as like a far off into the future, maybe one day, validating this part of my work experience. And then I did get nudged by a mentor who was like, actually, I think this is like doable for you. I'm pretty sure you've raised enough money. I'm like, what you're doing. You've gotten the education. You were the diversity fellow at AFP Icon. You've attended a fundraising day. You've gone to Congress. Like, this is like, you actually might have enough. And so then there comes a sleuthing where you're like, because I hadn't been tracking, which is like a lot of people, what they end up doing, at that time, you realize I should have been tracking all along. I wasn't. So then you go back and you actually start to like look at the application and be like, oh, this is actually viable. So I think at one point the CFRE did just amend some of those things, like amend how much you had to raise, amend how much, what qualified as a credit. Exactly. And I think that really changed the game for people to be able to actually consider it a viable option for them. I think before it was more exclusive, and now that's not the case as much anymore. So I do think, I did realize that it was, just a viable option for me and my manager. Because again, if you want to do the CFRE, you have to realize you had to pay for it. And that's a
daunting thing, and it's not cheap. And, I know that there are lots of folks, and this is one of the things that I had to kind of come to grips with earlier in my career. Like, we talk a lot about stewarding donors, right? And what happens after they give you the gift, et cetera. And one day I was like, I think we need to steward our careers like we steward donors, right? Like, so what happens after you get the job? Like, what are you doing in order to be able to come back to the table again?
Yes.
And I paid for it out of pocket too. And it was stressful, right? Yeah. Like, they don't take a payment plan, you know? And so being able to budget myself in such a way, there was some ramen days to get to that amount. And I think I wish, and I really do challenge organizations, regardless of the size, pay the $1,000, right? Like, it is such an investment into professionals. And I wish that more folks in leadership and some of the things I talk about would see this type of professional development as an investment, or just an investment in general, because I think folks look at us like an expense.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So the organization that I work for did pay for it. And that's because I had a champion. And I really do think if the organization's not on board, then you do like having that internal person to just help you leverage that and taking that for you. Yeah. It was really, it made all the difference in my case. But I went into it thinking, I would just get Achieving Excellence, the textbook, and have my CFRE compass, and just like go right off that in my experience, read book cover to cover, study, take notes, whatever. So I took my exam, and with just that, I had not done anything else, no study groups, nothing, thinking like, I got this, like, it'll be fine. Sat there for my 3.5 hours, walked out. I failed by 4 points.
No!
4 points. So when you look at the way they structure the points system, it's like a question. I failed by a question. And it was a very humbling moment for me. It was like, and you look down the barrel of like what is coming. I'm like, okay, that means I got to sit down for this 3.5 hour exam again. I got to like study all this stuff again. It's just like, I wasn't looking to pass by much, but I was just looking to pass. Just passing, I didn't need to pass by much, just need to pass. And then I failed by 4 points. And I was like, okay, to go back, I think then the same mentor and manager and workplace was still supportive of my journey. They were like, we'll do the retest. Like, we know you got this, like, just regroup and do it again. And so, I just think like the scope of which that journey, the next part of that journey for me really was getting into a study group, which I don't know if you're familiar with Jack Alotto's study group. It's in the CFRE network. He runs a pretty large one now. It's like over 100 people, I think. So it's fairly large. If you group off into smaller groups, that's a little bit helpful for folks. And I did that a little bit myself. And then I got the CFRE refresher course. So it's a book. It's not an actual course that you purchase through AFP bookstore. And it was like $250 USD. So I was like, when you add up all those costs, like, I just think there's so many barriers to folks being able to access the CFRE, even if they had the experience, even if they had the support of someone. It's just like, there's so many things that like you have to consider. And I look at who has their CFRE, and I look at that's changing a little bit for sure, like over time, but
not enough, not yet.
Not enough, not yet. And I think that it has a lot to do with, those barriers and who has access to, the privileges that come with like, being able to afford those things or even afford the time to study for it as well. So I'm a mom of 2 small kids, one's 4.5 and one's almost 9. And, it was a lot. It was a lot to manage to be able to study for that, do my job and do it well at work. And then mom. So, it was a lot going on. So yeah, definitely. I think, there's a lot of, I don't know, like CFRE is an institution, if we look at equity around that, is there like, what else, like, are they listening to folks like when it comes to equity and, and how we can reduce some of those barriers to actually attaining a CFRE? Because I do think it is a milestone for folks.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that I'm a trainer and I've done training for a long time. Through AFP for CFRE. And one of the things that I know is a marked difference between when I took it in 2009.
Yes. Wow.
And I know, right? And now is that Before I used to feel like the bar was so high that first it was designed for you to fail. And then secondly, like they didn't want nobody to have it. Not nobody look like me. And so that's how I feel. But now the length of time for experience, the dollar amount, things have been shifted so that it's more accessible to more people. But I do agree with you that like every association across any industry, just pick one, their sole mission is not making sure that there's an equitable base for how they do their work, that they have to work on it as well. And I'm always like wanting members to like push so that we can have not just have the conversation, because folks will have the conversation. Oh, I understand, you're right. But what are we going to do about it?
That's exactly right.
So you got to CFRE, and this is for folks who get any kind of credentialing. So whether they're getting the SHRM or they're getting their CPA or they're getting a technical degree, when you got this and you said, all right, finally, I got it in hand. What did anything change for you?
So I had actually gotten this role as senior director at Visions of Science, like literally right before I took my exam. So I got hired and was onboarding and then took the exam and then passed. But, you know, there was no like, it was just like, I was like, I'm taking this test again. I don't know like how it's going to go. And they're like, you got it. Like you're good. Like you just go and show up and do it. And if not, then we'll figure out a plan afterwards. And it just makes a huge difference. It takes that like, it's like a collective pressure off your shoulder, you know, like you have people backing you and believing in you, but also, you know, invested in this for you as well. And I think a lot of people, you know, might say that the CFRE might, you know, like it is an asset to the organization for sure. But I think first and foremost, it's an asset to the fundraiser. I think to be able to validate your experience. And I think for myself, looking back at my career and how I gained fundraising knowledge and experience really was through trial and error in that experience and just that hands-on tactical experience. And so I do think it validated for me that I actually knew what I was doing, that those instincts were right, that, you know, the things that I had done, maybe the stuff that didn't work out, that direct mail that failed or the, you know, what that it was like, but it wasn't in vain. Like, you know, you look at like how, you know, the frameworks are, and you look at the theory behind it and you're like, okay, like, I know what I'm doing here. And that, you know, I think it validates a lot of that. It also takes away a little bit of that imposter syndrome that I maybe had because I didn't go to school for it. Right. And there are folks that do.
But now, because that is real get fresh. And I know there have always been like higher level programs that are very academic. And so, but in terms of like folks going to school for nonprofit management and rigorous programs, that is maybe a decade old. I know somebody's going to fight me on it. No, we've been here since 1980. You know, like having a real body practice. And I also have to tell, you know, particularly young professionals when they come out of school, which is why I'm like, wipe that off your slate, is you don't know nothing. Like you actually have to do stuff.
You have to live it.
You have to live it. You have to fail. You have to be willing to try, test, get up and do it again. You know, your ego gets poked. You get your ego poked, you know, are you? And so I think that that is really true, that you can experience that, right? But also, you know, I'm curious about how you navigate being a mom, right? And also a woman of color in a space where, particularly in Toronto, where racism is like on a glacier under the glacier. It's there.
Yes,
it's up, but it's under the glacier. So how do you navigate, you know, the world when you have to think about your home life where you want to be fully present, and also in light of some of the challenges that are unspoken, right? At work.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I do want to shout out Visions of Science for a second, because this is a workplace that has really just been non-apologetic with the fact that we serve Black youth, that we have a very diverse team. If you look at our team, like who is there, it is representative of the communities we serve. Yes, 100%. And that's a value for us. And so, you know, for Black History Month, for instance, we had a staff retreat, and Black staff were able to actually be in their own like breakout session. And then the other POC staff was in a different session. And we were able to actually talk about things like real talk, like, you know, how anti-Black racism has shown up in our lives, what we've seen, what we've not done in those moments, you know, as other people of color, you know, and the way that anti-Black racism has shown up. Like you said, you're Jamaican, my family's Trinidadian. You know, I think that this is like, this permeates like everywhere, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, you know, we don't really dive into those conversations enough. And, you know, so I think like when you say, you know, how am I navigating that? Like, I know that, you know, as a person of color, as a woman of color, I've experienced a lot of discrimination, a lot of, like oppression in many ways in the workplace. Have been pushed out in, from workplaces as well. So, when you have books like Collecting Courage and you read that, you really see like, I resonate with a lot of those experiences as well. But I also know that, being a Black fundraiser is just very specific, a very specific experience. And so, how can we be better allies? How can I be a better ally? Just also speaking to, Anika Allen's lecture that she had put out in the world, and her experience being on the AFP board in Toronto, and just, seeing that experience, and just knowing that that's like how have I also been a bystander, and and just really reflecting on that, and what more we can do. So so I think it's just talking about it is really important. Acknowledging people's experiences is really important. And then you asked me about being a mom. I think like oh my gosh, my two boys are like, they're so energetic. Like, when you wake up, like I don't stop going until like my kid gets to bed, again at night. So it is very, tough, but I think to be able to like I really believe that having workplaces that actually value you as a whole person allows me to be a better mother. So, and I have had 2 workplaces now, Visions of Science, and I would say like, a few now, where I've had that experience of people really supporting that part of me. And that's who I am first and foremost. Like I am a mom. And so that's like a really just a big part of my experience. So, we need workplaces to support that. And to be able to offer and cultivate spaces to have those really hard conversations. That's also really, really important.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. And I think that, more and more parents, caregivers, and even folks who are not direct day to day, but who have, this sort of like supplemental care, are really asking for different, right? And saying like, it's possible to do this work and be different. So I'm curious, if I know you said you took your CFRE right when you started in this role. So do you think it was enough to change your career path? Like if you hadn't gotten into that role, you took it again, you passed. Is it enough to kind of change your trajectory?
Yeah, that's interesting. I do think it's a component. Like what I think it was for me, it was a mental shift. It was like, it was a mental shift for like how I needed to level up. And so that was like, I think it was just part of like me realizing overall that I needed to make moves I need to make another shift in my career. I need to like really be at, the place where I could be more strategic when it comes to fundraising. Like I have done the hands-on fundraising. I have done like all of that,
all the things, right?
Generalist, like, hands in everything, like wearing multiple hats. I've done that, and I know how to do that very well. And, I'm very proud of that experience, but I also want to like, my brain works from a big picture level. Like I need to be able to like zoom out and not just be caught up in the weeds. And so that was where I realized like the CFRE was like a complement to that, that shift for myself, that professionally I needed to like be, doing more strategic level things, leading teams, like directing visions forward. Like I just needed to be able to be in that space. So so I think the CFRE was a really big like a pivotal moment for me, just to realize that, that
you're like ready to like step up in your leadership journey and really kind of access some different tools in your toolbox.
That's right. And I also just think as a fundraiser of color, like we just need more people with this, like more fundraisers of color who have a CFRE, period. So like if that's all I do is just to inspire other fundraisers of color to like actually,
go and get
even just people to like actually approach fundraising as a career path, then I think that that's like a win for me as well. Like I mentioned that CFRE refresher course book that I got from the AFP bookstore, and actually have decided that that is the book that's going to become like the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, but for fundraisers.
Oh, I love that. I've done that with mine. So I've done this mine back here. It's so damn dog-eared. Oh my gosh, it's so true.
Yeah. So I was like, so it's already been passed along to another fundraiser. I don't know when she's gonna be taking her CFRE exam, but that is, something that she wants to do. And I have said, like all I ask is that you pass it along to someone else. And so, like that's right, because I don't think we all need to fork out $250. We just need to like, just learn from that and create a community around that. And I do think like when you think about the CFRE itself and why I really appreciated the study group dynamic is that it felt more like a community. It didn't feel like I was doing it by myself, you know, for myself, because you know that's where you start from.
That's where you start. You kind of go like this. You have your head down, you know,
yes.
you laser focus. So yeah, I totally understand that.
But when you have a community around you, it really helps for sure.
Well, before we go, you know, at the very beginning of our conversation, you said to me, you know, I'm going to come back to this statement about hustle culture. So what was your thought, if you want to talk to me about, like, because I have all types of feelings, okay, about hustle. Because when I first started working, that was you just got to go, you got to make it happen.
Yes.
So when I started my business, of course, I brought that same,
oh my gosh,
rush energy into my work. And woo!
It takes a toll.
It takes a toll. So where have you landed in this 2023 on hustle culture?
2022, I will confess that I burned out. You know, and I know that we all do this, the people that work in the social profit sector, like we all just throw our whole selves in, especially if you are mission driven, like I am. You know, you come to an organization because you believe in that work fully and you want to like see it succeed and do well and, you know, and fulfill that mission as much as possible. And so I do that. I do that every time. And, you know, I really realized like after this, and I burned out before, you know, as we all have,
right? Like you have to change things so foundationally sometimes that you don't even recognize yourself, and you can be afraid. I know I struggle with that, afraid to make the changes you want to make, because what happens when you don't have that race to run, you know?
That's right. But I do believe you need to have the support, like the structure to be able to support not reaching burnout. And so the organization that I'm in now, I feel like, you know, like for instance, fundraising itself is very decentralized across the organization. There are multiple people who are already doing fundraising before I even got here, and I'm officially their first fundraising staff. Like that's the first official. So, so I just think like even just rethinking like how we do fundraising in organizations, it's always on the shoulders of that one person. You know, you might have the board support, you may not. You know, like there's a lot of things that are a lot of variables that really influence the success of a fundraiser and the sustainability of fundraising at the organization. Period. And so I think setting up fundraisers to really feel supported and to know that it's not all on their shoulders is probably a really good place to start. And for me, that was the shift. It was like, you know, getting to this organization, burning out at the last one, coming to this organization, seeing how it's set up. I think, you know, there's a lot of like, do we need to do this? You know, like, is this
what we need to do? Is that right?
And really like actually asking that question for everything. Like, do you actually need to do this? Because I was like very quickly, I was in a fundraising meeting yesterday and, you know, I was like, oh, we should send them an impact report and we should do this. And then my manager was like, you know, do we need to do that though? Like,
and you need that check and balance. Like, are we doing the most? Like,
all the time. But do we need to do the most all the time?
All the time. Oh, doing the most is my middle name. No. And so it's so interesting you said that, because I had a staff meeting at the beginning of the year. We were reviewing what we did last year, you know, coming just after we had some time off. And one of my team members was like, so about this impact report we do every year, you know, does anybody really need it? It's a lot of work. It's really good stuff in here. Does anybody care? And I was like, you know what? Let's look at the numbers. And we looked at the numbers and we were like, no one cares. And so we're not doing it.
Yes.
We're like,
but like,
yeah, we're like, what are we doing this for? Ourselves? We know what we did, you know, like we put it on a one page on our website. And
that's right.
Here's our accomplishments for the year at the end, you know, and
that's right. And can it look different? That's like a really key point. Like, can it look different? And do we need to do the most for everything? Like, I don't think that we do. So that's a lot of unlearning though. So I think, you know, it's a lot of unlearning. All around. Yes.
Well, I am so glad that you like took some time to kind of talk through pieces of your journey with me, and you know, to really inspire folks who are looking at, and you know, we have a lot of folks who watch us who are not fundraisers, who do other things, but certification. And so if that is the thing that you desire and believe is going to put you to the next level, particularly if you're a person of color, and you know that becomes our baseline. It's not the plus, unfortunately. Then, you know, you have given folks real reason to be able to do it. I love the idea that your shift happened in terms of like, oh, this is how I got to really move in the world. And I think that allowing yourself to be pushed by you. I think it's so phenomenal. So thank you so much for connecting with you. I've been sharing with folks how to connect with you. I do believe that you are a relationship builder. I can always tell my empath in the house just shows up all around you. And I think am I an endless optimist? I feel like I'm typically like, you know what, the good side is. So I appreciate someone who shares that side of life with me. So I'm so glad that I had you on. Folks, make sure you connect with Tammy on LinkedIn. And I want to make sure I say your last name correctly. So can you do that for me? Because I was like, oh,
yes.
I was like,
no, that's so fair. It's Tammy Ebuen. So kind of like
Ebuen.
bueno,
I knew
but
it. Okay.
Ebuen. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful,
that's right.
beautiful.
Yes.
And my family's from Jamaica. So listen, us island girls.
Yes. Yes.
I always wonder
Oh
why
my
my parents
gosh.
did not move to England or didn't move to Toronto. I need to ask them.
Right?
Because those are the three places you went, you know. So
that's true. That's very true.
I gotta ask.
Oh
My
my
mom is
gosh.
in the kitchen over there, so I'm gonna ask her when I get off. But Timmy, thank you so much. Hang out in the studio. I'm gonna close out with everybody else. It has been so good to have you on. I so appreciate you. I cannot wait to see you again in real life. And just thank you for sharing your story with us. All right. Listen, y'all, this is the end of my show. This is a great, great, great week. Tammy is just amazing. Y'all, can you just get the energy from her? I love it. Remember to connect with her on LinkedIn and give her a shout out. Make sure that you're connected with me across all socials at Kishshana Palmer. And if you are ready to learn more with me, make sure you go to learn.kishshanaco.com. We got big things coming that are changing this spring, so you want to get in on this action now. If you are like, Kishshana, I need some time with you. I just need to deep dive. I need to get some strategy down. I need to really figure out what I'm doing next with my organization and with my team. Make sure you book a VIP strategy day. That is the best 5 hours of your life, y'all. And if you want to learn more about this topic, don't forget that we have a wonderful episode on Let's Take This Offline. Episode 28, our obsession with credentials, when we give different perspectives on what it means to be credentialed. And so I'd love for y'all to share in that. And if you are looking for your next coach, you're looking for executive coaching, we are opening our doors at KISHSHANAPalmer.com for more coaching. And I'd love to see you. Well, friends, that's what I have for today. Okay. It has been an awesome, 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 awesome time talking to y'all and hanging out with Tammy and just making sure that we really start to have this connective tissue around how we think about leveling up in our career and really be clear and be honest about some of the challenges and barriers that we face as we think about our career journeys. Well, that's all I have for today, y'all. I want to thank you so very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see y'all next week.